This is After Hours, one of the spaces the 25 plus community of our church come together. The 8 p.m. service no longer exists, but our reason for wanting to reach those who are 25 to 35 still remains. Why is it that the best conversations always happen at the end of the night, after that church service ends, or once people have left the party, or in a lounge after the gig? It's in that space and during that time, when the lights are dimmed and the hype dissipates, that you start to relax. We get a bit more honest and real about our lives. We become unfiltered and go below the surface. We'll say what we really think or believe about the issues we're faced with in society. Some say it's during this stage of life that we struggle with identity exploration, instability, self-focus, feeling in between, and as though we're providing a meaningless role to society as we float from one thing to the next. But what if we could be different? What if we could make a difference? We want to get right to the heart of people who find themselves around that 25 to 35 stage of life and establish how we can positively shape the society we live in and impact the people around us as Christians. After Hours is one of the spaces we want to do that. We'll unpack the challenges and the opportunities that come with this age by hearing people's stories from our community, through Bible studies and meditations, and have raw and honest conversations with people from all walks of life. Our hope is to provoke thoughts and cause convictions to rise up in you and inspire you to create conversations of your own, which encourages you to take actions and to positively shape society in your world.
Hey, welcome to After Hours. Well, this week, Fadila, Rocky, Joel and myself got to have a conversation all around positively shaping society. Now, this is something that we really want to be known for in our 25 plus community, and I'm sure you do too. So it's a conversation, as I said, and I want to encourage you though to try and lay aside your distractions and really engage, because there is gold in it. We get really honest about where society's at and where things are at, but more importantly, how we can positively shape our society. So check it out. I know you're going to love it. So After Hours is obviously a new show for us. And I think a banner, if we want to call it that we want to come under, is positively shaping society. We want that to be something in which we are, a message, I suppose, in which we're trying to communicate. So we hear that within church, you know, between 18s to 25s, even younger. Now we're 25 plus. And so I think that's something for us to embody, to take on. How does that look though, do you think, in our lives? How do we positively shape society now that we're this like 25 plus community?
I think from the ages of like 25 to 35 it's an interesting one, because you're either single and you've just come out of uni, or single and just started your first job, or you're young and you're married, or you're young and you've got kids like you, Matt. And actually in all of those things, it's really easy to actually lose yourself.
Yeah.
And actually be identified by I am married, or because I am a single working person, or by my job, or by my child, or whatever. And actually I think the struggle of positively shaping society is still knowing that actually there's a world outside of your sphere indoors that you actually need to keep going for, and keep like going. I'm called for more than just this. I'm called,
my patch of grass,
yeah, for my patch of grass, and I'm actually called to your patch of grass, and I want to be an influence in your life, and I want to be an influence in the church, and I want to positively shape society just outside, not just in my sphere.
So I hear what you're saying, but like, why do we need to do that?
I think, sorry, I just had it as in like everyone looked at me and I was like, you're like, why? Oh God, why? That's fine, it's fine.
We can keep this, don't worry, we can keep this.
No. I think you get to a point, like Fadila saying, like when you're 25, you get to a point where you feel like you should be contributing to society.
Sure.
And so you're at a point where it's like, they say that like quarter life crisis, in the sense of, you know, you've done university, you've done school, majority of people get to that point.
Yeah.
And within that time, you feel like you should be, you know, you're at a point where you should be stable in your job, you should be stable in your life. It's like, you start thinking about like, oh, I'm close to 30, so what about kids? What about if I'm not married, should I be? And I think that's where you start to think, well, what am I adding to society? And that starts to bring in this mind that, well, obviously my input should be positive because I want to make a difference in the world. I want to add something, and I think there is a pressure of, with everything that's going on in our society today, it's like, I need to be a voice of change and I need to bring something different to this, which can be a huge pressure.
Yeah, I think it's like, once you've kind of left the education system, especially from like a Christian framework, like we're called to be like salt in the world, we're called to be a light in the world, like it says in, covered up, but you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its taste, how can its saltiness be restored, right? So you're called to be this preservative in the world, but like when you've been in education or like in a job for so long, I feel like you get to like 24 and you're like, cool, how does it actually work? Because now I'm actually in the world that I've been trained to be salt in, right? But sometimes we treat salt like sugar, so I'm just supposed to be like, I'm just supposed to be in the world and make everything happy. Everyone's positive, I'm positively shaping society, so I just be happy in everything. But salt as a preservative is supposed to, number one, you're not supposed to be a plate full of salt, and sometimes we find ourselves in a plate full of salt, and just eating that is just horrendous.
Have you tried it?
I have tried eating it. Every day I wake up and eat salt. But if we're supposed to preserve and not decay society, which is what salt is for, how do we do that practically as Christians?
True,
do you know what I mean? Because sometimes, positive shaping, that means in every meeting I should be mad happy. And that's just like, is that actually positively shaping that society or that sphere? Because sometimes I have to be a hammer. Or sometimes I need to listen. Or sometimes I need to wrestle with someone, or someone needs to disagree.
To positively shape society, we need to be in it. And that's what...
Good. No, that's
sometimes.
We actually need to be in it. And that's when you're saying like a plate of salt, I'm just going to be honest.
Please.
That is like, in my head, is like a plate of just where I'm living in this bubble of Christianity, where this is all I'm just eating. Yes, my life is a fairy tale, all that stuff. But actually, no. Like I'm called to be part of worlds that are really dingy, and I'm like, oh God, like, where are you in this? And for me to go sprinkle, sprinkle.
No, it's true. It's absolutely true. So I would think then, no matter what your occupation or what your stage of life, from your experience though, obviously because you fall into this demographic, on a day-to-day basis, how do you make sure that you're in society? You know how the Bible says we're supposed to be in the world but not of the world. So we're supposed to be in society, because I grew up in a Christian home, so I know what it's like. I've found this weird transition between what was modeled to me and what this is how you should live your life, and then you realize, but the rest of the world is so different, and I'm trying to find this happy medium of don't want to compromise my morals or my beliefs because I know what's right and what's wrong, and then there's some grey in there which we kind of like to dabble in because it's nice. But how do we make sure that we're in society, but then yet we're able to model Christ and be light and be salt and that kind of thing, and not add to the rot, but preserve the goodness.
I think for me, like, especially like early in my hustle, my music hustle, I was like proper John the Baptist vibes, where I was just like, I'm just gonna be in this sphere and not be plugged to anything, but I'm gonna hold on to Jesus and try and change the world. And like, obviously in every session I was trying to like speak life into it. Like I was always, because of proximity.
Tell me about speak life, because we hear that phrase used. What does speak life mean though?
It's so Christian, I was always trying to find the avenues and the opportunities to make people aware of the divinity they carry. Because I think like inside of them, I think people are completely unaware of like the Christ they carry. So some people will have like, they hear God and they're like, they hear Christianity, they hear church. Like I was out for dinner with a guy that's like, wouldn't consider himself atheist. After a long conversation, I was like, you believe exactly what I believe, but you're scared of the word God. So I was like, let's not say the word God. You say force, I say spirit. Let's talk about God like that. And he literally left like, oh, yeah, maybe he may not fall down on his face and be like, Jesus! But like that conversation has allowed him, with me being vulnerable enough to just acknowledge the trauma that a word like God could have to him, the negative connotations, to take that out. So like, whilst I was in music, that was my one thing. It's like, I'm not trying to convert everyone. I'm just trying to make people aware of the divinity they carry. And whatever that does for them. But I think the twofold thing is sometimes you can be on a John the Baptist flex and not be plugged into a community.
Totally, yeah.
And I think that's what I found myself, because I wasn't plugged into source, into a community that completely reminding me what my mission, we say mission, but like the Christ I carry, you can just be lost in this flood of like humans. And I think like the second point, as I got older, I realized like, nah, what's going to be helpful for me is if I retreat back to get information, to get love, to get energy that I can put out into the world.
It's that scripture in Proverbs, and it says, whoever walks with the wise will become wise, but whoever walks with fools will suffer harm. And I think it just comes back to that of, like you said, ultimately, if we're going to be salt of the earth, that means, same with, using the food analogy, you put salt on food, you don't put salt with salt. But ultimately, iron sharpens iron. And so salt needs to come from that same rock. It needs to come from that same place of understanding, that same place of maturity, and then you go out and you're like, okay, then I'm going to bring this to it. But like you were saying, Fadila, I think you have to go into those places because we can become so insular, and to positively shape society, that means you have to help mold. That like shaping means to go into it and not conform to it, but ultimately bring it into a new shape. And that means adjusting it, that means changing it. But I also think that means understanding where society's at. And I think what you were saying, Rocky, of actually some people are in a place where in today's society, there is such a connotation in terms of church and God. And so we have to be aware of that and understand that in order to maybe shift that perspective. And like you said, it's not going in all guns blazing, saying like, this is this and this is this. But it's getting alongside one another, and I think iron sharpening iron looks like having that friction, having that conversation, and saying, oh, I think this, and you say, I think this, but ultimately coming to a place where you're willing to both kind of put your weapons down and say, well, let's unpack that together. Let's not just, come in guarded, but come in saying, let me look to understand.
But do you think that's where our testimonies are so important, and actually us like remember our personal stories? And actually I've been a Christian for 10 years and I'm 29, like that's 19 years of me shaping society without Christ. And do you think actually as much as possible we need to be spreading that story, and kind of to positively shape society, we need to remember what it was like to not be able to and not have Christ in us.
And to understand society. Because we're trying to change something that we don't have a grasp of. So we're answering questions that no one's asking.
Exactly.
So we're going to change society. What do they want? I don't know, I'm scared to go out there. So it makes no sense. Whereas actually, if Christians should be the best listeners in the universe. Because actually, when you listen to someone, you'll be surprised what they tell you. Do you mean, if we create spaces where people come in and say, I'm hurt like this, then we can help people heal in a particular way. Whereas I feel like sometimes as Christians, we're mad like, we're shaping society and society needs this. And it's like, everyone outside of our context is like, we don't need that. You know what we need? Someone to listen to us.
Exactly.
If all that's being said, like, why don't we? Why aren't we shaping society? Why aren't we saying what we're saying here? What stops us from doing that?
Well, I was going to ask a question almost similar to that. Is you've all talked about church to some degree. That whole definition of church has been completely changed right now. We don't have the large mass gathering on a Sunday. So that a large mass gathering instills confidence in us that what I believe, everyone else around here believes me now. Exactly. So it's almost like you run into your Monday and you're like, I'm ready now to positively change society in my family, in my workplace, whatever it is. We don't have that anymore. It is gone. So how are we going to, and maybe your question's probably a little bit similar, but it's like, how do we do that though now that we don't have almost like that backing? Obviously it's from a within, that personal conviction thing within us, but how do we positively change society without the,
it's like the cheerleaders have been sent away.
They have. Like, it's all Rocky. It's up to you now to go away and change and positively shape society within your context, which is probably over Zoom. So how are we reaching into those areas in society who we say they need positive, influence? How do we reach them?
I feel like creativity is born with limitations, and I feel like the Spirit of God has never been confined by the environment. Do you mean like the Spirit has never been like, God's never been like, oh, you know what, man? It's of depression out there and recession. So I'm gonna, like, God's never been
better
limited.
retreat.
Yeah, never retreat.
Guys, I'm just gonna take a breather. Just things are a
Yeah,
little
do you know what I
bit
mean?
too
It's
hard
like
for me
God
right
didn't
now.
just go away to the dark ages and be like, peace, deuces. Like, God's always working. God can move for a Zoom. God can move for a phone call. God can move for a FaceTime. God can move for a one-to-one conversation. So rather than us sitting here and being like, life has stopped, we can't be Christians, we can't change the world without a Sunday service. I challenge us to be like, what we do in the other 6 days,
it's good,
in our one-to-one conversations, that is reflected on a Sunday, yes, but like me FaceTiming my dad can give me the same source of energy that like a church service can, if I allow it to.
Because it's not a source of energy, it's Jesus.
And
we carry Christ.
So me and you on a Zoom, if we surrender to the Spirit in that moment, could be as an experience as conference. Do you know what I mean? Like, and we have to now create these mini conferences wherever we go, because the Spirit of God, when 2 or 3 are gathered, is there. So how do, like, I'm challenged to create those moments in my own life now and be innovative as a Christian. Because I know Jesus didn't have a synagogue on the mount, but he just gathered on a mount. Do you mean? So like for me, I'm like, Jesus is just thinking, what do I have? I have a mount. Hey everyone, come over here.
Come in,
And I can just spit the gospel from here. Like, do you mean? So how can we
I think ultimately it comes to as well is scaling back our thinking from, I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to change the world. And we don't have to change the world, we have to make a change. And I think whether that's, you know, day to day making a change in somebody's attitude, a change in somebody's perspective, a changing our mindset. And I think when you look at Jesus, who is the greatest example of this, he changed the world, but how did he do that? He made it by making changes within people's lives. So he met the woman at the well. You know, he met somebody where they were at.
One-to-one.
It's one-to-one.
He didn't always rely on the mountain or need a platform or need a microphone or need a YouTube program or need a mass following of people.
He changed 12 people. Like, if you think about it, like, oh, did he talk to my 12 people? He completely reformed their mind and made them aware of how amazingly special they were. These people that were like misfits, like discarded by, they were like fishermen, discarded like like people that are on the fringes that we're like super scared to touch or get involved with. Like, he changed them and made them understand how powerful they could be. And
I
they
have a
changed the
question.
world.
I've got a question.
Far away.
So my question is, okay, so how can we positively shape society if we're not okay? So actually, like, is positively shaping society is step one, making sure I'm okay. Is what do you guys think?
I think that's a tough question, because then it ask the question of, well, does it bring into this whole thing of you have to be like perfect, or like when are you okay? And I think it's a thing of like, sometimes you just have to be on the journey and bring somebody alongside you on that journey and unpack it together. Because I think just by somebody, if they, you know, if they are struggling with mental health, if they are struggling, just by them coming forward and saying like, hey, I'm struggling, that is positively shaping society, because it's changing the narrative from being like, hey, keep everything closed up, to being like, hey, let's bring this together. And I think that's what we have to shift our mentality to, is positive doesn't mean happiness. It doesn't mean put together. It doesn't mean like, sometimes
it's not.
Sometimes it's tough, sometimes it's hard, but ultimately that does have a positive
and
effect.
it also means like being angry about the right things.
When
there's injustice, we're angry because we're positively shaping society, and that does not fit in with what kingdom is. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely,
And we have to be, I think, we have to be, if the body of Christ, that analogy of the body, if we are successfully being the body of Christ, then when you're hurting, I can be like an antibody. Do you mean I can help heal you in that sense? So you're not supposed to be strong all the time. That's not sustainable. That's not how nature is. Nature is not strong all the time. Do you mean like the whole structure of the universe is based on ebbs and flows and dips? But what we see outside in the universe is that things complement each other and fill in gaps for each other. So if we're actually supposed to be the body of Christ, which is a wild state, like and again, one of those simple things that is wild. Like, if you come to me with your vulnerability, I'm here to carry when you're carrying. And like, so I don't have to be strong all the time, because I'm plugged into something that's bigger than me. I'm allowed to be weak in. And I don't serve a God that wants me to be strong all the time, because that's not a conversation. Do you mean like, this isn't a conversation if every time you come to me, I'm like, hey man, you good? I'm good. Are you good? I'd rather you like be real.
Yeah.
Because that's how we actually change things.
Yeah.
When we acknowledge the realities that we live in, that's how we can implement change.
Yeah. And I think to get real as well is that like sometimes somebody just making it through the day, like if we're getting like, you know, we're getting real and talking about where people are at, like people are at breaking point sometimes, and for them it's a celebration like, hey, you made it through that day, and that is a positive.
That is
like
a positive.
that is like,
Absolutely.
you made it through.
Jesus.
It's a step towards Jesus, and I think like you look at Jesus and how he took time out, and I think for us there has to be this level of like not pressure amongst people of like, hey, just taking it one step at a time, or like one action, one change, one small thing that is going to contribute. And again, it can be as simple as, hey, you just made it through that day, and like, hey, good on you, you made it. To the point of, you know, because again, that's just going to build strength. And I think it comes back to that thing we were saying about getting alongside one another and about iron sharpening iron. It's like getting alongside one another, seeing people in those places. And I think for us as well, taking the responsibility when we see people in need, when we see people who are maybe not okay, we reach out to them and we're like, you know what, I see you're not okay, so let me carry your burdens with you. Let me, I might not, it might just be listening. Like listening is, you know, that's one way of just positively shaping society, because like we all need to just be like heard out sometimes. It doesn't have to be this big thing. Sometimes it is just in the small.
And I think also we need to like debunk the whole thing that like to positively shape society means that you need to be like in like fully just doing church stuff.
Oh my God.
Because literally, I was literally having a conversation with, like my sister works for the NHS, a nurse, and the other day she calls me, she'll be okay with me saying this, she calls me and she's like, Fadila, I don't feel like I'm doing anything for the world. Like you're like doing all these things for church, and and I'm like, excuse me, I'm not saving people's lives every single day. I'm not going and, you know, helping people change and do all this stuff. And like when COVID was happening, she was like on the front line, like positively changing society does not mean that
everyone's in ministry.
I'm in ministry. No, of course not.
I feel like Jesus didn't call us all to be pastors.
No.
That's salt. Again, it's a plate full of salt. Like we're not all supposed to be here. Like there's supposed to be Christ-like people that are plumbers. Christ changing that industry. Christ-like people that are electricians. Christ-like people that are songwriters. Christ-like people that are doing in all spheres and doctors. Whatever you're doing, you're building the kingdom where you're at. It doesn't matter what you're doing or what like how you're serving. Your serving is breathing Christ in whatever situation it is. And that's what, and I think that's the massive challenge as a Christian to embody that, because sometimes you're like, oh, I'm not in the church, so I'm not doing that. Just like I'm in the church, so I'm doing enough.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm in the church, so I'm better than you.
I've been in church, and over this until this period of time, my positively shaping society has been like I've been on host team, or I've been in worship, or I've been in PA, and that has been where I've focused my whole energy in building the kingdom, right? And like you said, that's lock off. That's all gone, right? So then now I'm like, okay, well, that was how I served, and that's no longer my outlet. So now I don't do anything. Or like for someone, so what's the challenge there? Like how do people contribute? How do people understand that?
And also, what was the church actually fundamentally meant to be for? Like, as in, when like, you know, if you talk about that host team analogy, like that person wasn't just serving for serving's sake. Like, I think we've forgotten that actually in that time, we're serving others, we're serving a community, we're building the house of God, we're building something for generations to come. And I think it's perspective. When we lose perspective, when we lose vision, the people, you know what I mean, we perish.
People perish.
So I think that's it. It's like, what's our, I think in this time when COVID is a thing, it's actually really easy to lose vision for all parts of your life, for your career, for church, for whatever. But actually, you have to fight for vision.
You have to fight.
And maybe it's fighting for vision.
I think if we take the example, right, of Jesus at the Last Supper, and like everybody's walked in, and like Jesus is like top dog. Like by that point, everybody's singing his praises. He's like the coolest guy on the block. And he gets in there. The last time he's probably going to see all these people before he's literally murdered the next day, and he just takes a towel and washes everybody's feet and serves everybody in the room. Like, so for me, my example of how I build the kingdom, irrespective of if it's a church or a worldly, I hate that word, context, is that like, how can I enter spaces to wash feet? Do you know what I mean? And like, because it's never about me doing an act to be promoted or doing an act to be fulfilled, because Jesus washing feet wasn't necessarily endearing or fulfilling, because he's humbling himself, and they didn't wear sandals and they walked around for hours. So it's doing the dog work of wiping muck off people's shoes. So like, but by doing that, by providing a space, because the main thing that I feel like Jesus is teaching in that moment is like, if we can create a community where people are outpouring into each other, then no one will be empty. Yeah. Because I'm not trying to get by giving. Yeah. I'm just giving, and then you're giving. And there's a continual flow of everybody giving. But the problem starts when you stop giving.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because then you're filled, and then you go off, now you're filled. Yeah. But the person that was supposed to fill me has left the room. Yeah. And then I'm empty. Do you mean? And that's where the tension is, because now we've got people that have been pouring out and that are burnt out, and then you have people that are full and that are having the best lives.
Do you think it's the whole thing of like, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing, or whatever? And like that, like in Matthew, and it's just basically how maybe actually the struggle with us is our egos as well, where I want you to see what I'm doing. I want you to see me in church. I want you to see me helping my friend. I want you to see me helping my neighbor. I want, because of what it's projecting. So I will positively shape society if it positively shapes me. How I
come on now.
Absolutely. You know, so maybe it's that.
It's so true. I feel our whole society is geared toward that, though, right? It's like if you do that, you're celebrated. So if what I do isn't seen, I'm not celebrated because no one's seen it. The only person who knows I've helped anyone is the person I've helped, and God, that's it. Yeah. So unless I run around, whether it be social media or telling all my friends, hey, look at the good things I've done, look at the people I've helped, no one is ever going to know that. And that's what exactly you're saying about with Jesus. He's time after time after time, he would go into places, he would meet with people who the world rejected for a start. The world would say, you can't do that. You're not even allowed to engage with that person. No one else was there. But yet now later on, we're reading about that. And like, you know, that's the thing. We've got amazing examples of it's not rocket science in how we positively shape society and how we can make an impact, a major impact into someone's life. I think it requires getting our hands dirty. It requires inconvenience. It requires going where other people aren't, you know, prepared to go.
And I think ultimately it comes down to is like, if you look at what Jesus did, like he turned it upside down, like he flipped the norm. And I think like, you know, you look at the Pharisees and all the religious people of that time, like they thought, oh yeah, we're doing this, we're contributing to this, we're shaping our society, but actually it wasn't, it was hindering. And I think with Jesus, it's the same within our world, for example, of when you're in a workplace, for example, you are working to gain yourself. You know, it's for self-promotion, it's for a better job, whatever. And I think it's looking at it the way that Jesus does, turning it upside down and saying, actually, that's my impact on society.
And maybe positively shaping society is secret. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in, positively shaping society is in your private place, is in that private conversation, is in that one-to-one, is in that taking, you know?
So a great challenge could be for the week is go out and make a difference in someone's life this week, positively shape society, and don't tell anyone about it.
Yeah, literally.
Good, well done, guys. I hope you guys managed to get some gold out of that conversation. You know, we tried to be as open and as honest, candid as we possibly could. Because reality is that society is in a bad place, and it requires you and I think, prepared to roll up our sleeves and get our hands dirty to positively impact people's lives. So the challenge that I set out there at the end, are you up for it this week? You know, could you go out without telling anyone else what you did? Could you go out this week and make a positive impact in someone's life? You're not going to post about it. You're not going to tell your friends or your family about it. The only people that are going to know is you and that person that you helped. And imagine if we continue to do this over and over and over again, our city, our nation would look completely different. You know, that's all we got time for this week. But one thing guaranteed is we've got another installment for you coming up. Let's catch up for a drink this week. I don't know how, let's just not do Zoom, okay? Maybe drop down in the comments if that's something you're keen for this week. But either way, we love you and we'll see you soon. Just go there, don't I? Hey, welcome. Can't even say hey. Positively shape. Not coming in too hot. It'd be great to catch up for a coffee this week too. Okay, here we go. Diddly-dee potato. Well, that is all we've got for the week. Here's an idea. Make sure glory. Maybe we should grab a coffee sometime. I don't know, but other way. Oh, you're so close. Could you just do a blunt cut and then we just like go take 2? But it almost doesn't matter because we've gone the... No. Okay. Well, I hope you got plenty of... What was this?
Don't say wow.
Let's see you next week kind of deal, eh? Well, for the 77th take, well, I hope you